There are 298 prisoners on death row in the state of Florida. This is part 29 of the series. Alex Pagan, 54 years old, 25 years on death row. Pagan was convicted for the murders of 6-year-old Michael Lynn, his father, Freddie Jones, and the attempted murder of his mother, Latasha Jones, and his 18-month-old brother, Lafayette Jones. On January 23, 1993, Pagan and Willie Graham broke into the victim's home and stole clothing, jewelry, and money, all of which were later discovered in Pagan's hands. Pagan and Graham intended to go back to the same residence because they had learned that they might be able to find an extra $12,000 to $13,000 there. On February 23, 1993, Pagan and Graham, both wearing ski masks, broke the sliding glass door to the victim's master bedroom, where Freddie, Latasha, and their infant Lafayette were asleep. One of the burglars started exploring the home when Freddie said he didn't have any money. Michael Lynn was taken to the master bedroom after he was discovered in another room. He then searched the rest of the house while holding Latasha at gunpoint. He took Latasha back into the bedroom and shot her with the gun when he was unable to locate the money. Latasha said that she could see through one of the gunman's masks, which was partially off, that he had white skin. The victim's car keys were then taken by one of them, who instructed the other to start the vehicle. Then Pagan, the shooter, tied everyone up. Once he had shot Freddie, he turned to Michael Lynn and said, "Shorty, if you live through this, don't grow up to be like me." Then he continued to shoot. Despite being shot, Latasha survived. She claimed to have heard between 7 and 8 bullets. Latasha escaped her bindings after Pagan and Graham left and yelled for Freddie and Michael. She took her infant and fled the house in search of assistance when neither of them responded to her questions. Michael Lynn and Freddie both passed away from gunshot wounds to the head and one to the buttocks, respectively. Search and arrest warrants were issued for Pagan on February 27, 1993 for the deaths of Freddie and Michael Lynn Jones, as well as the attempted murder of Latasha and Lafayette Jones. Thomas Woodall, 53 years old, 24 years on death row. For a double homicide, the state of Florida gave Woodall a death sentence. According to court records, Thomas Woodall planned to kill Clifford Moody, 79 years old, and Bernice Moody, his wife, who was 74. In his testimony, Woodall would admit to killing Bernice Moody with a knife, then killing Clifford Moody when he returned home. On December 31, 1996, shortly after 1 p.m., the Moody's bodies were discovered. Clifford was discovered face down in the dining room of the trailer. His pants and underpants had been lowered to just above his knees. His spectacles were about 2 feet away from his head. The medical examiner testified that Clifford had a total of 8 stab wounds, more of which resulted in internal bleeding than external, and that he passed away very shortly after his wife died as a result of these wounds. In the same trailer, Bernice was discovered with numerous stab wounds. She was naked with the exception of one sock as she lay lifeless on a bed in the trailer's back. On the floor next to the bed, there was a nightgown and a pair of female underwear with a knot in it. Also discovered beneath her were fragments of a porcelain toilet tank lid. In his testimony, the doctor stated that Bernice suffered from a total of 56 cut or stab wounds, many of which he believed to be defensive wounds on her right arm. The vein in her jugular had been cut. Additionally, she had received significant blunt trauma injuries to her head, and her nasal bones were fractured. LeBron Dennis, 51 years old, 24 years on death row. The black Ford Explorer that Earl Little had lent to his roommate Marlon Barnes was waiting for him when he arrived at his University of Miami on-campus residence on the morning of April 13, 1996. Little discovered that his car had a puncture in the right rear tire, which was the reason it was leaning to the right. Barnes was slumped against the front door, severely battered and barely conscious when Little opened the door to his apartment. When Little phoned the police, they arrived at the flat and discovered Timwanika Lumpkin's body, who had sustained significant head injuries but was still alive. Barnes passed away there, while Lumpkins passed away after being flown to the hospital. It was then discovered that both of them had lacerations and trauma wounds that were caused by repeated shots from a shotgun. Barnes and Little were both football players for the University of Miami, and after the killings, the football team met, and some of the players mentioned that Lumpkins had a former boyfriend by the name of LeBron Dennis. Dennis acknowledged having a romantic relationship with Lumpkins and having a kid with her during a police interview. He also admitted to the police that he and Lumpkins had fought the week before the killings over the time she arrived home late from an evening out with Barnes. Dennis, Lumpkins, Dennis's cousin, and her boyfriend were all residing in the same home at the time of the argument. Following the argument, Lumpkins departed. The state presented evidence that Dennis had stalked Lumpkins on numerous occasions and had once threatened to shoot her, which further connected Dennis to the killings and showed Dennis's motivation. Thomas Overton, 68 years old, 24 years on death row. For a triple homicide, Overton was given the death penalty by the state of Florida. According to court records, Overton entered the home of Michael and Missy McElvore and murdered the couple and their unborn child while robbing it. DNA linked Thomas Overton to the crime. Susan Michelle McElvore, age 29, and her husband Michael McElvore, age 30, were discovered dead in their Tavernier Key home on August 22, 1991. Susan was 8 months pregnant with the couple's first child. Samuel Smithers, 70 years old, 24 years on death row. For 2 murders that occurred within 10 days, Smithers was given a death sentence by the state of Florida. Sam Smithers killed Denise Roach and Christy Cohen in a short period of time, according to court records. They had all been beaten. Denise Roach was stabbed to death, while Christy Cohen was slain by an axe blow. He was arrested on May 28, 1996. Daniel Conahan, 69 years old, 24 years on death row. Conahan was found guilty of 1 murder, but has been linked to a dozen other killings, largely of gay men and transients looking for work in Charlotte County, Florida, which came to be known as the Hawk Trail murders. The Fort Myers 8, a group of 8 men whose bodies were found in a mass grave in 2007, have also been linked to Conahan as the main suspect. Gary Hertz, 46 years old, 23 years on death row. Jason Looney, 46 years old, 23 years on death row. Early on July 27, 1997, the bodies of Melanie King and Robin Keith Spears were discovered in their burning house. Around 11 p.m. on July 26, Gary Hertz, Jason Looney, and Jimmy Dempsey walked away from a friend's house which was close to the victim's residence. Approximately 500 yards away from the victim's home, a woman claimed that Hertz visited her house at around 2 a.m. and asked to use her phone because his truck had broken down. The 3 men continued to make their way up the road toward Melanie King's and Robin Keith Spears' house after she declined. "There's my car right there," Looney cried as soon as he saw their black Ford Mustang. "That is the one I want." Dempsey and Hertz knocked on the victim's front door while posing as a decoy and requested access to a phone. They were given a cordless phone by King, and Dempsey pretended to use it. Hertz barged into the house with a rifle as Dempsey began to give King the phone back. Looney followed him inside and pointed his weapon at Spears. King and Spears were chained and gagged with duct tape before being forced face down on their bed. A TV, a VCR, furniture, jewelry, CDs, and $1,500 in cash were among the many goods the 3 defendants stole. King allegedly said to the defendants that she would rather die being burnt up than shot. She said, "Please God, don't shoot me in the head." Hertz said, "Sorry, can't do that," and then he began to discharge his gun. Dempsey then started firing after Looney. The gunshot wounds caused the deaths of King and Spears. The residence was burned to the ground after the shootings. Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.